Myth or Memory, Episode 4, The Nephilim Veil, Mapping the Forgotten World. When the dust of the old world settled, the children of the sky and the children of the earth stood side by side. The flood waters receded, mountains cracked open, and survivors began the long work of remembering. They called their ancestors many names: Nephilim, Titans, Apkallu, Divas. But the story was always the same: beings who carried fragments of a world that came before, crossing bloodlines and rebuilding from ruin. Some carried knowledge of stars and metals, others carried seeds and memory. Together they repopulated a fractured earth. The result was us, humanity, as a mosaic of lost civilizations, born from both the sky's fire and the soil's patience. But somewhere along the way, the record was redrawn. At first, the edits were subtle. Myths became allegory, calendars reset, and directions inverted. Then came the cartographers. When maps were rewritten, so was reality. Lands once marked with accuracy disappeared behind blank oceans. Islands were renamed, inverted, folded out of existence. What better way to erase an earlier age than to redraw the world itself? Every empire has done it. Babylon shaped its world around the Euphrates. Rome stretched the world towards its borders. Medieval Europe placed Jerusalem at the center, shrinking Africa and distorting the southern hemisphere. Even in the age of exploration, cartographers quietly obeyed kings, charting not what was, but what was allowed to be known. Perhaps this is why the ancient maps don't match our own. The Piri Reis chart showing an ice-free Antarctica, the Mercator projection that inflates the northern empires, fragments of coastlines where nothing should exist. These aren't mistakes, they're the seams of an older geography bleeding through the newer paint. If the Nephilim represented the merging of bloodlines, then map-making represented the merging of perceptions. Each generation of rulers reshaped the earth in their own image, erasing traces of whoever came before. The more maps changed, the less we remembered of what the world truly looked like and who once lived where. It's possible the first flat versus round earth debate was never about curvature but about control. The argument itself became a distraction, a perfect psyop to divide curiosity from discovery, ridicule both sides, drown them in absurdity, and no one dares to look at the real question: what's missing from the map? Ancient stories speak of lands beyond the poles, of inner realms and hidden continents swallowed by rising seas. Whether literal or symbolic, they hint at the same truth: humanity's memory of the planet is incomplete. The eagle rewrote the heavens, the serpent guarded the forgotten corridors below. Between them, a veil of secrecy was spun, a planetary amnesia woven from paper, ink, and politics. Imagine the chaos if the veil lifted, if we found proof of civilizations beneath Antarctic ice or under the Sahara's shifting dunes. Every textbook would collapse overnight. The timeline of human progress would snap like a brittle chain. Maybe that's why we're taught not to look. The illusion of final knowledge is safer than the shock of rediscovery. But the clues persist. Megalithic alignments that map constellations no longer visible, temples orientated towards suns that rose on different horizons, ancient routes that seemed to cross oceans we're told didn't exist for their builders. Our ancestors weren't lost primitives, they were the last cartographers of a world we've forgotten. So perhaps the Nephilim weren't gods who fell from heaven, but geographers of memory. Those who tried to preserve the layout of a planet reshaped by cataclysm. Their fall wasn't moral, it was geographical. They fell through time, through censorship, through the slow erasure of context. Each time we redraw the world, we redraw ourselves. The house of cards, called modern history, rests on selective projection, an image of Earth that flatters the present and amputates the past. But a wrecking ball doesn't destroy truth, it reveals foundation. Beneath the printed lines of political borders lies a map etched in stone, bone, and myth, a record that refuses to vanish. Maybe that's what the old maps were trying to show us. Not new lands, but old memories. Not fantasy, but evidence that our world is larger, physically, historically, spiritually, than we've been permitted to see.